Bell Car Community Radio Station. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Her in the Huddle, WOVU's Look at Sports, featuring the First Lady of Sports, Rachel Hill. Welcome, W.
All right, here we go. We on air now. Sorry about that, everybody. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. I had to make sure that I played that. We were WOVU and let everybody know who we are. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports, saying what's up. We got a good show for you today. I'm so excited. I got my boy Willie Epstein back co-hosting with me. And we try to give you some of this hottest sports talk on the radio, delivered by a woman with some men in my huddle, because that's what's up. We can huddle up together. So, Willie, man, what's going on in Dallas?
Cleveland! What's going on, sis?
Oh, man, you got it. You know what I'm saying? You got it. How are you doing today?
I'm good. The weather is look, there's no tiny ship getting tossed because it's getting warm out there. So I had to ride with the air conditioner on today, and I don't really like doing that. So here we are.
Oh, stop complaining, because you know what? It's supposed to be cold here tomorrow. We're going to be dipping down. And so it was like 90 on Tuesday. Today, the high is, I guess, like 70. Tomorrow it's going to be 64. Then we're going to be dipping down to 55 on Saturday. So
I'll take that over the heat any day.
Whatever. I don't want to hear no complaints, because I like heat. I like the hot. I mean, I don't like, like combusting live. I don't like that. But we could go for some heat here. Yeah, I kind of wouldn't mind having Texas weather here.
No, you don't want that. Look, you don't want that smoke. Trust me.
I don't need winter.
Well, I don't want that kind of winter that y'all have either.
Like literally, I don't really need winter at all. So it looks like we got our special guest. So our guest is here with us. So I was just about to say he might be joining us later, but we have Mark Gray with us, who is the assistant managing editor of MLBBro.com and the national radio voice of HBCU sports for HSRN.com, where he hosts the Sports Groove 2.0 at the Sports Groove. If you want to get at him, Mark Gray, Willie Epstein. How are you, Mark? What's going on, sir?
I'm hot and wet, just like you. Well, maybe just hot. It's hot here.
Now you in our arch enemy town, Baltimore, correct?
No, I'm in Bowie, Maryland. I'm right sandwiched in between the Washington, D.C. area. So I'm sort of like in the middle.
Okay. And what's the weather like over there for y'all?
It's hot. Didn't you get it? I wasn't trying to be politically incorrect. It's steamy. It feels like it's July, and we got a 5 o'clock shower that's going on right now that I barely made it through to get here on time.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm very excited to have you. I have the chance to do your show before, so now you're on my show. So I'm so happy to have you. So why don't you start off telling our audience about MLBBro.com?
Wow. First off, it starts with Rob Parker. That Rob Parker from Fox Sports 1 and Deadspin. Him, J.R. Gamble from the Shadow League, and myself were just having a conversation, quite frankly, during the All-Star game of 2019 here in D.C. about what it would be like if we had a platform to cover Black American baseball players, because we were at the Futures game and it was loaded with Black American talent. The Taylor Trammels, the Buddy Reeds, guys of that ilk who we are seeing have an impact on the game right now. We saw a whole bunch of Asian reporters who were here to cover the Otanis of the world. We saw, you go to any ballpark right now, there are scores of Hispanic reporters covering the Latin American players and the like, but there were really so few African American reporters because, quite frankly, there were so few African American players. And, I remember standing between Mookie Betts and Michael Brantley and thinking, wow, this is it. As far as all-stars are concerned, I was like, this is crazy. So then the pandemic hits. We come out of the pandemic and the infrastructure is in place. And basically what it is, it's an opportunity to correct the myth that Black people don't love baseball, because we always have. There's a reason you can look at historically in my town that the Homestead Grays, which were based in Pittsburgh, used to come down and play at Griffith Stadium, because the Senators were terrible, B, nobody was going to the games, and C, Griffith Stadium was selling out. And the only way that Calvin Griffith was making money at the time was because of the Negro League players that were playing at that stadium. So you look at the historic context, you look at what we do in terms of embracing the history of the game, and boom, you got MLBBro.com, blast from the past. And what we're hoping to do is have a somewhat of a culture shift, if you will, much like what Slam Magazine did in the 90s with the NBA culture and sort of bringing it mainstream to where you can wear baggy shorts and high tops to the cookout and get props. We try and do that same kind of culture shift with baseball right now. There are more Black players playing college baseball, more on travel teams, and you got a lot of athletic players who are recognizing that $350 million over 10 years when you come out and don't have to worry about CTE is a better life than playing maybe, 7 or 8 years making that money and dying prematurely.
Absolutely. Because I can tell you, when I covered the All-Star game here in Cleveland a couple of years ago, I was from what I could see out of hundreds of credentialed media, I was the only Black female there. And when I met Rob, I told him that, because he was like, yeah, I didn't see you. I was like, yeah, I was there. I probably stuck out, but I was the only one that I could see. And when I say Black, I talk about, Black, and I don't speak Spanish, because there are some Spanish speaking people that are darker than us. So I let him know that. And I'm the only one in the press box as usual. So, I think that MLB Bro, I am lucky to be able to write for MLB Bro. So it's
and do multimedia. So don't go around thinking. Yeah. I've seen you with a microphone in your hand on your social media site. So we know you ain't scared to be in front of it. But that's what I'm really most happy about, Rachel, is to see young Black women like yourself embracing the game. We've got 2 other young ladies who are coming along, and I just remember how great Claire Smith was to me. And I was thinking about that earlier today, how Claire Smith and Bill Conlon, the former columnist at the Philadelphia Inquirer, took care of me during the 96 World Series. My first time at Yankee Stadium was for the 96 World Series, which was incredible, because if you're a baseball geek, it's one thing to go into Yankee Stadium, but your first game at Yankee Stadium is game 1 of a World Series. Man, it was off the chart. And I was sitting behind a TV monitor, not caring that I was in right field over top of the Yankees bullpen. I didn't care. Bill Conlon, Claire Smith made sure that I had every working amenity that I needed. And I always said that if I got a chance to pay it forward, because they looked out for me, I would do that. So when I see you and Jayla Norman and other sisters come through, that's what it's about to me. I'm salt and pepper. I'm OG these days. It's about your time, because in 10 or 12 years, I'm hoping to pack it in, but I'm still going to like watching sports, and I want to be able to see the next version of Claire Smith, which could be you, except instead of with a pen and a pad, she's doing it with a microphone in front of a TV camera and getting it in. That's really what it is for me right now.
Yeah, because also, too, there are no Black women on Major League Baseball Network.
Right.
So no Black female on-air talent from what I've seen.
But they are behind the scenes.
Okay.
I can attest to that because a young lady that I helped mentor just a little bit when she was at Howard University was part of that Emmy-winning team for
Okay.
MLB Network last year. So, quite frankly, behind the scenes, they're making slight inroads. But I want to see a
Yeah.
black Heidi Watney. I want to see a black Erin Andrews because everybody looks at Erin Andrews as this TV football girl. Erin Andrews cut her teeth as a outstanding reporter, studio host for TBS when they had the National Weekend Package and she was doing the Brave stuff. And then she went to the college football sidelines.
Okay.
And if Erin can do it, then I know there's several sisters out there that can do it. They just need the chance. And we're going to make damn sure that they're in the face of the execs. So you can't tell us what we can't do. Here's a whole list of what we can't do. You tell me why.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, this is a dream opportunity for me. And I love baseball. It's my favorite sport. And I always say, I love baseball, but baseball does not love me because when you came on my show, we didn't even get a chance to talk baseball. We talked, Browns and Ravens, which we'll get to a little bit later. But, I'm just super excited about the possibility and the opportunity. And people like Clara Smith did pave the way for me because she was physically removed from a locker room. And it's just, I'm like, ain't really much changed.
Well,
I've not been physically removed, but I get the stares or what am I doing here and all that other stuff.
We all did. And
yeah.
I think that's how me and Rob kind of bonded because I remember meeting him and, Major League Baseball back in the day used to really take care of you during the postseason. You get this playoff passport is what they called it. And you go down to the hotel and just grub. So on my way to the office, since I was in Atlanta working at the time, it was a playoff thing. I think it was Braves Reds in that particular series. Go down there to eat. Rob's sitting around having breakfast with a bunch of white guys. I'm coming in with my black photographer. We just struck up a conversation, and quite frankly, we've been boys ever since. And it's really bonding over baseball. And there were so few brothers, but the brothers that were there were happy to see me. The Larry Whitesides of the world, God rest his soul. Terrence Moore, who is still a columnist in Atlanta. Chuck Johnson, who's on Debatable with me, which drops tomorrow on MLBBro.com. These are all older black guys who just kind of took you under the wing. When they came into town, they would drop words and pellets of wisdom that I can pass on to the next generation. And really, like I said before, it's about paying it forward, doing right by those who did right by you and keeping the evolution forward. And I just think when it comes to baseball, that evolution has to include gender equity. And that's where I am with this.
Do you want to know something really weird?
Okay.
So before all this came about, before I was told about MLB Bro and stuff like that, I had you on my list of contacts because remember I told you like I'm gonna get you on my show one day.
Right.
So I have a list of contacts that I want to follow up with them and bring them on the show, and you were on there. So this was a couple weeks before MLB Bro had even happened. So
right.
Isn't that so weird?
Well, it's like Branson Wright hooked me up with you.
Yeah.
Because I had called him initially. And this is how the circle works. Shh, yeah. Don't tell anybody. It's been going down on the other side like this for years. Anyway, you know what I'm saying, Willie, right? Anyway, that's how it works. He couldn't do it. Turn me on to you. You came along. I didn't know you knew Rob. I was thinking about reaching out to you to let you know because I had talked to 3 other sisters who didn't move. And then the next thing you know, bang, here we are on a conference call. There you are. And as a matter of fact, I was going through the red side. I was like, Rachel Hill. I was like, wow, I know Rachel Hill in Cleveland. I was like, there can't be that too many Rachel Hills who are in sports in Cleveland. And bam, there you were. That's that. It was kind of meant to be, so to speak.
Yeah,
that's absolutely. Why she's the first lady of sports.
Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And that's so important because we have to stick together because they don't want us there. And you can tell And, like I said, I've had experiences that you don't know about that I got to catch you up on. But, it's very difficult. It's very difficult being the only one. And
You didn't run into Mickey Callaway, did you?
well, we gonna talk about that because we're gonna take a
boy.
break because that news just dropped. So that's what I wanted to get to when we get to break. So we actually about to take that break right now. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mayor Frank Jackson. The City of Cleveland Division of Police is accepting applications for patrol officer until Sunday, May 30th. A career in the Division of Police offers a competitive salary, great benefits, job security, and opportunities for career advancement. We are seeking a diverse group of young individuals who are motivated and who represent.
They recruiting for police officers?
To speak to our recruiting officer, call area code 216-6.
What does that say?
Wow.
5233.
That may explain a lot.
35233. You can also visit the City of Cleveland's website for more information.
Oh, I gotta give a shout out to my boy Ronnie Duncan.
Your application.
To submit your application online, visit governmentjobs.com/careers/Cleveland. This message is brought to you by the City of Cleveland and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burt Bell Carr community radio station. WOVU listeners, we are currently experiencing technical difficulties with our terrestrial radio signal. If you are experiencing interference while tuned in to 95.9 FM, simply listen in through the WOVU mobile app or stream us live from our website, WOVU.org. Thank you for listening to WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
What's up, Cleveland? It's your girl, Jazzy J, and I just want to know, have you downloaded our app yet? Yes, our app for Androids and iPhones. All you got to do is go to your app store and download WOVU 95.9 FM, and you can listen to us anywhere.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right, we're back. Welcome back to Her in the Huddle, WOVU, 95.9 FM. Remember, you can always give us a call at 216-271-0959. You can listen to us online at WOVU.org, and you can also download the WOVU app so you can take us on the go and listen to us at your leisure. So today, I have my co-host Willie Epteen with me from the Shakeback Sports Show, and I also have my boy Mark Gray from MLBBro.com. And also the HBCU national radio voice of HBCU Sports for HSRN.com, where he hosts the Sports Groove. So he was actually segued into the topic that I wanted to discuss because the news just broke. I just got off of a press conference with the Cleveland Indians where Terry Francona spoke, and so did Chris Antonetti. Fellas, so for those who don't know out there, Mickey Callaway has been suspended indefinitely into 2022 season. After the investigation that Major League Baseball conducted. So pretty much he did it. Sexual harassment in the workplace. What coincidentally, though, they supposedly didn't find anything about his time with the Cleveland Indians, and I believe everything started with the Cleveland Indians. So talk about failing up, but okay. Fellas, what are your thoughts about the Mickey Callaway situation?
Willie, you take this one out. You're the starter in this rotation right now.
Yeah, I was just gonna say when this story first broke about him being involved in this when he was with the Mets, you had to have known that it was gonna come to this at some point. And to me, in the climate that we're currently in, not just in sports or entertainment, but really just in life in general, that there's way too much in the forms of technology that will have you get busted for things like this. And it's just kind of like the whole George Floyd debacle and what we saw and what we witnessed a year ago yesterday. Thank God for technology, because now what it's doing is it is exposing people who have issues with integrity. And how I define integrity, ladies and gentlemen, is just like this. Integrity is doing the right thing when absolutely no one is looking. So, for Callaway, you have to understand that when you are in a position of leadership and authority, your life or your life in baseball or whatever walk of life you're in is going to be magnified that many more times simply because of who you are and what you're doing. Now, to be in the largest media market in the world and have this come out the way that it did, we had to have known that it was going to come to this at some point.
All right, let me come in and close in great Mariano Rivera fashion, since we did bring up the New York card.
I need to play Sandman. Sorry.
Yeah, please do, because there has been a culture of New York Mets front office people and former front office people, such as, say, I don't know, Steve Phillips, perhaps, who have had these egregious sexual behaviors towards women. As Steve Phillips got popped when he was messing around on his wife while working at ESPN, and he remixed himself and became a broadcaster behind the scenes in satellite radio. Still, the damage had been done. Mickey Callaway is just another one of those people from the New York Mets culture. See Keith Hernandez as well, who made some egregious commentary about the San Diego Padres trainer who was a woman a few years back, and he's still on the air. The only thing that happened with Mickey Callaway is he got caught. He'll remix himself. He'll get away for a year. They'll give him another chance, and the same situation will continue to roll. And I think it was a despicable act. I think that at some point, if you're going to ban players for life for things such as using performance-enhancing drugs, let's be clear about that. When you're using a performance enhancer, you're giving the fans the best that you got. All right. Sorry if it's chemically induced. You're giving the fans the best that you got. It's not like you're showing up at the ballpark hungover or, shamming. You're giving the fans the best that you got, but you'll ban people for life for giving the fans the best that you have. And you will continue to recycle these demented social deviants and keep them around the game. So I just don't think that there's a place for anybody like Mickey Callaway. I think it's a culture that permeates what's going on in the Big Apple, particularly out there on Queens. And it's just something that somebody has to be made a true example for. And I hope that he's the one so that everybody gets it. It's a new world order. You can't pat anybody on the backside and think that that's cool anymore. Just get over it, baby. Nah, forget that. And maybe that's the girl dad in me that's coming out here. But right now it's egregious and it's heinous. It's been going on too damn long. And I'm glad to see he's got to pay a penance for it. I just hope it's more significant than just a year's suspension.
Yo, let me come in behind that. We're going into extra okay, because what you said is absolutely 100% spot on. And I love the game of baseball just like you guys do. It is the sport that I fell in love with first. It is the sport that I played the best. But baseball, in particular, Major League Baseball, the hypocrisy that has existed in the majors for so long, when you talked about the performance-enhancing drugs, it was cool as long as we saw Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire out there chasing the home run title for that year, 1998, in St. Louis at the old Busch. It was cool when Barry Bonds would come up to the plate and nobody wanted to face him, so he leads the league in home runs and intentional walks. I think that was 2003. But what about this? You have Mickey Callaway that's done this. You've had I think it was the general manager out in Seattle earlier this year that got popped for essentially the same thing. You had hashtag Signgate down in Houston, although It's a little bit of a different dynamic in terms of sexual harassment, but it is still cheating the game. So it was okay for Major League Baseball to allow for cheating to be going on with the PEDs. However, chicks dig the long ball. Remember Tom Gavin and Greg
Exactly. Yes.
With that commercial. So as long as it was putting butts in the seats and getting ratings, it was cool. But now I want to pose the question to both you guys. So if Mickey Callaway can get another chance, and if Joey Cora can get another chance,
Alex Cora, but
Alex Cora can get another chance. I'm thinking about Alex Rodriguez, and he got another chance.
Mhm.
If Cora can get another chance, and all of these things that happen inside the Major League Baseball ranks, why in the world can we not let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame?
You know something, you struck a nerve right there with me,
Yeah.
because that's what I've been saying all along. You really can't call it the Hall of Fame without the hit king being in that ring of honor. You know, you're keeping Barry Bonds on the outside looking in. Roger Clemens can't get in. Come on, y'all. Let's be real for a second. Clemens and Bonds were great players who pushed the envelope so the fans could enjoy the game. Even Mickey Mantle, before he passed away, said God gave him a great body. He wished he hadn't abused it the way that he did, so he could have been even greater. And remember, part of his legend is notorious for hanging out with Billy Martin and Whitey Ford and carousing through Manhattan after those nights when the Yankees were beating people down, and in the 50s and 60s. So baseball has a lore of subjectivity. And when you're on the wrong side of history, or you're on the wrong side of whatever baseball's code of ethics is, which seems to be a sliding scale for white men than it is for black players. I mean, let's be real for a second. Curt Flood is kicked out of the league for demanding free agency, but we find a way to remake and remix all kinds of egregious behaviors by other counterparts that have done things far more egregious. Hell, Gaylord Perry went all the way to the Hall of Fame with a spitball. That's cheating too. You know what I'm saying? But we got a sliding scale for cheating and behavior, and it can't go down for real like this anymore.
Yeah, that's what I said. Mickey Callaway will fail up. And you talk about these people who are not in the Hall of Fame and probably will never get in. I'm a big Pete Rose fan. I believe he belongs in the Hall of Fame. But the thing is, these are the people who saved baseball. That home run duel between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire saved baseball. Baseball is still third and dead last between the sports, but these are people who saved baseball and brought attention to baseball when it needed that attention. So if anything, you need to honor them. Barry Bonds, think about, every night everybody watching every game to see him hit this home run. They saved baseball. They deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. And the way that process goes, or voting, I hate it. Absolutely hate it.
And look at it from this standpoint too, guys. Is that baseball, Major League Baseball was coming off of a strike in 1990.
Right. That's the yes.
It was dead. And it robbed the Toronto Blue Jays, who I think was one of the better teams of our generation.
You mean the Montreal Expos at the time? Now the Washington
Indians, because they were good too.
Well, I'm talking about the Toronto Blue Jays when they won the World Series in '93 on Joe Carter's home run off the Wild thing. And then next year they were in line to repeat. But then the strike came in August. So baseball was dead. And Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, y'all remember Brady Anderson from the Baltimore Orioles?
Yes.
He hit 50 home runs that year, and then you never heard from him again.
Hell, so, Mickey Tettleton was a part of that team. He was hitting like 50 and eating Fruit Loops.
Yeah,
they tried to say his home run prowess was because of Fruit Loops, and we know that there was chemically induced Fruit Loops.
The Loops were this big.
Yeah, and they started as like mini ones. There was signs of a little nut that goes around a screw.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they're the size of a donut. How'd that happen?
So look at it like this, guys. Look at it like this. The same people, the same players that we ran to the ballpark to see, the same players that we ran to the TV to watch, the same players that saved the sport, you are now keeping them out of the thing that everybody that's great in a particular sport wants to get to, and that's the Hall of Fame. I think it's a travesty. And Major League Baseball, look, that I guess that can be considered one of their quote unquote unwritten rules, because and I got
and here's the deal: the crotchety old curmudgeons who are in that room with Rob Parker are suddenly going to be outside that room, if you will. So you got more progressive Gen X guys and millennials who are coming forward. The trouble is that by the time they get an opportunity to fully appreciate analytically, which is another thing about the game that troubles me right now, which I think is suppressing the opportunities for African American players. You start compressing those analytics, and you start seeing that there are tons of other people that should be in the hall as well. And I think what's going to happen is the younger generation of seceding Hall of Fame voters are going to get an opportunity to correct those wrongs. However, the guys like Bonds and Clemens and Rose may not be on the ballot, and the Veterans Committee is going to turn their heads around. And many of the people on the Veterans Committee were taking amphetamines in order to keep it moving in the dog days of summertime, and they won't cut them a break for drinking Haterade. So it's just a sad commentary on the state of affairs where, unfortunately, as much as we want to see Pete Rose, Barry Bonds, and Roger Clemens get in, I just think that the walls of hate are so high against those guys, it's going to deny them the rightful place in Cooperstown.
Mm-hmm. Did you have something, Willie, before we go to break?
Yeah, one other quick thing. Ty Cobb is in the Hall of Fame. Ty Cobb is one of the most racist, or was one of the most racist, not just athletes, but people to ever walk the face of the earth. So you mean to tell me that that's okay, but in a league, in a sport where they turned a blind eye to PEDs and they actually allowed it because they didn't test for it, the guys that actually helped bring baseball back can't get in.
You mentioned earlier the St. Louis Cardinals. How about Enos Country Slaughter going in spikes high on Jackie Robinson just because he was black? People don't bring that up a great deal, but that's a part of the Cardinals' history. And let's just say that, St. Louis ain't that far from Ferguson, Missouri, and we know how they get down out there.
Exactly.
Yeah, we sure do. We got to take a real quick break, fellas. We're going to be right back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
Hello, this is Cecil Lipscomb with the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, coming to you live from WOVU, here to talk about COVID-19. We're doing a panel discussion, the facts, your concerns, and our future. Let's talk about it. On the panel, we have Lavita Hewing, a registered nurse, Dr. Gregory Hall, the founder of the National Institute of African American Health, First Sergeant Michael Johnson, Ohio National Guard, and the moderator, the one and only Kevin Chill Hurd. It's coming to you this Thursday, May 27th at noon. 1 hour and 15 minutes. That's all we need of your time. We know you've heard about COVID-19. We know that you've heard about information about this before, but guess what? Not like this. Come and join us. Hit the WOVU Facebook page. Also, you can hit it on unitedblackfund.org to learn more about how you join the Zoom call. It is a Zoom call, so we're going to see your face in the place. Thank you so much. See you this Thursday at noon.
This message is brought to you by the United Black Fund of Cleveland, the Greater Cleveland Association of Black Journalists, the National Institute for African American, WVU 95.9 FM, Our Voice United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Better days are ahead. Be ready with the training you'll need to get a great job. If you or your family has experienced financial hardship as a result of COVID-19, Tri-C can help with full tuition assistance. Whether you want to improve your skills, get certified, or train for a new career, go to tri-c.edu to check out our programs and resources. So, what are you waiting for? Register now for online and on-campus summer classes. Tri-C is where futures begin.
This message is brought to you by Tri-C and WOVU 95.9 FM, Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right, welcome back to Her in the Huddle. OVU 95.9 FM. This is Rachel Hill, and I have my guest with me. I have my co-host, Willie Epteen Jr. with me, as well as Mark Grave, Assistant Manager at Managing Editor of MLBBro.com, and also the national voice of HBU Sports for HSRN.com, where he hosts the Sports Screw. Sorry about that, Mark, in your introduction. My producer was telling me something. So, but fellas, when we went to break really quickly. There was a lot of stuff that's happened today. I'm like, we might not even get to Cleveland sports because I want to talk about the Trump and the Spygate thing really quickly. I have a feeling Mickey Callaway is going to fail up. He will serve his suspension, even though he got fired by the Angels, got fired by the Mets. He will serve his suspension. He'll be able to get another job, and he will fail up, as happens a lot of time with Caucasian people. But what he was involved in was messy, too. It was just messy.
Well, I mean, it helps when you have a group of powerful friends in powerful places. I think there's a term that they use. It's called the Good Old Boys Club. And, it'll be interesting to see if Mickey Callaway gets a second opportunity to, screw up again. I mean, this is something that's supposed to be not tolerated. And again, when you start looking at the diversity, the gender diversity of the way baseball is going right now, that old school, good old boy stuff where we don't want women in the locker room, where we don't want women in the press box, where women take your place 5 paces behind us on matters of sports and sports coverage. That's just not going to fly anymore. The game has changed. You gotta, crap or get off the pot. And it just seems like more guys get an opportunity to get back on the pot than they do if they're a person who is of our hue. And the more and more we keep pushing that in the face of the league and the people themselves, they just got to deal with it, man. I mean, deal with your crisis of character. And I think that, at the end of the day, when you start looking at Major League Baseball, that's been its problems. It's been a historic crisis of character, certainly as it relates to minorities. Heck, you can go back to the early days in the 1960s when the Latin American invasion started, and manager Alvin Dark of the San Francisco Giants wouldn't allow Hispanic players to speak Spanish in his locker room, and they didn't know English. How the hell are you going to talk when that's the only language that you know? And he was able to get one of those 3-in-a-row championship rings that the Oakland A's got back in the 1970s. And to your point, failing up. We're talking 50 plus years ago, failing up. That's how baseball's gotten down. That's how baseball gets down. And unfortunately, unless our generation can change it, it will continue to move forward by getting down like that.
We trying.
That's my squad.
Who, the A's?
Yes, sir.
You remember, well, you probably old enough to remember Alvin Dark when he was a manager of the A's, but he came across the Bay from San Francisco, and, he was out there on some, Hispanic Jim Crow stuff right there, if you ask me. That was foul as ever.
And that's the reason why players of Latino or Hispanic descent are so hesitant on giving interviews post or pregame because of the language issue, because those reporters have a tendency to take what they're saying and twist it a different way and report that in their articles as to that's what it was or what they wanted it to be, thus for causing a bunch of controversy.
Yeah, I mean, there is a saying in the newspaper business that if it bleeds, it leads. And it's just been accelerated or put on steroids, if you will, by sports talk radio and Scream television, particularly in the morning when you get up and you want to find out what's undisputed. That's basically how they get down these days, man. It's about screaming.
We can talk about that too. But I want to talk to y'all real quick about the Trump thing. So news broke today that Trump offered a bribe to the late Senator Arlen Specter to drop Spygate, drop the investigation, because the Senate was going to get involved. So obviously the government getting involved. He offered him a bribe to stop the investigation. And, we know the outcome. Tom Brady, he served a couple games and that was it. Was he fined?
No, that was Deflategate.
Okay. Oh,
yeah, that was Deflategate.
I'm sorry. I mixed up the cheating scandals because Bill is always cheating. If you ain't cheating, you're trying.
Yeah. And not to be confused with Spygate, but that was a different gate altogether.
Yeah. look, in the last 15 years, we've had Spygate, Deflategate, and Signgate.
Not to mention Bounty Gate.
Bounty Gate, yeah.
But so that time when Bill had the crew in there against the Cincinnati Bengals, I was in the press box that day. And this was a crew that stuck out because you really don't see whole crews in the press box. They're out in the field. So it was just really weird. So I was telling Daryl Ryder, who is beat reporter for another station here, I was like, who are those people? He was like, I don't know. So not too long after that, we saw them kind of being walked out. And it was just crazy. I was like, they didn't even play. I don't even think that they played the Bengals until the next year, but he was already cheating in advance. So I was actually in the press box that day when that incident happened, because that camera crew, they did not look like not saying they didn't look like they belonged there, but it was just weird because you don't really see that often.
Against the Bengals. Really?
Right. What was the temperature of that game? Was the temperature higher than the total number of wins between the two teams in that game, especially if it was late in the season?
I can't remember. That was 2019, though, because time has passed fast. You know, the pandemic passed slow, and now we in June 2021. So it passed fast. But no, I can't even remember that day. But it was just really, really odd, and they looked really out of place. And then it later broke that, you know, it was Bill Belichick again. And I'm like, man, I'm not surprised. But I was like, I was there.
But more
he doesn't
so,
cheat. He just he pushes the envelope on the rules. They would argue.
But more so than Belichick is Trump's homeboy. His ace Boone Coon.
Well, Robert Kraft. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, most of the NFL owners are in bed with Trump. I mean, let's be real for a second. All this Black Lives Matter stuff is to save those sponsorships. But in the back rooms, I mean, there's countless pictures. Certainly the one that stands out to me is right after the election when Trump was in the New York Jets locker room getting a warm embrace from, I believe it was Woody Johnson, the owner of the Jets. I'll remember that vividly and thinking to myself, damn, Colin Kaepernick will never play in the NFL again. When I saw that embrace, it was just something, you know, chilling about the way that they looked at each other. And on the surface, the billionaires know that they have to capitulate in some fashion publicly, so they allow Jay-Z to, and I don't know if you heard this news that's breaking, that broke a little bit earlier here in the district. Nothing imminent, but there are rumors beginning to circulate that he's trying to buy a piece of the Burgundy and Gold franchise here in the nation's capital. And when you start looking at what Daniel Snyder has done to kind of offset the negative headlines that he's been getting from his or his organization's forays into sexual harassment and the massive overthrow of his board. But now this organization that was the last to integrate has a black team president, a black vice president of player personnel, female vice president of communications now, all since all hell broke loose. And it's just amazing right now how Jay-Z may be interested in purchasing a piece of the team right in time for them to start doing heavy negotiations with the District of Columbia, which is where everybody would like to see the stadium built. It's in Landover, Maryland, which is about 15 minutes outside DC, right off the expressway. It technically it's a place called Palmer Park, which is not too far from where the great Sugar Ray Leonard grew up. So it's a suburban Maryland area that's in the middle of nowhere, kind of like Richfield Coliseum used to be. Because it's not yeah, you know, you remember how that long road they used to take down to get to Richfield Coliseum? Well, yeah, it's like
it literally is out in the middle of nowhere. It literally
is. Well, or like what was once well, you know, what is it? Gillette Stadium in New England right now, that's in the middle of nowhere as well. That's where FedEx Field is. They want to try to move it back into Washington. what better way to try to broker a deal to get the feds to allow you to build than to have Jay-Z, the designated urban NFL ambassador, to help you try to broker the deal. And you can see everybody laced up with Rockaware gear and all the players coming through Rock Nation being represented by your boy.
Throw up the diamond, baby.
You know what I'm saying?
We know what that means. We really know what the diamond means.
And we know how Robert Merrill used to always sing the national anthem at Yankee Stadium before World Series games. I guess we'd have Alicia Keys to do the Black national anthem here before Burgundy and Gold games, because we still don't have a mascot yet. We don't know if it's going to be Red Wolves or Red Tails. I wanted to be Red Tails to represent for the Tuskegee Airmen, but you have a lot of people literally who have said it would be great to go to the ballpark and be able to howl at the moon like a wolf. So don't be surprised if the Washington football franchise forsakes the Red Tails and the history it will represent for the Red Wolves so that people can howl after scores.
George said that's why they call Richfield Coliseum the big house on the prairie.
Wow.
Yeah, Willie, it literally is out in the middle of nowhere. They tore it down now, but lots of memories. I never attended a game there, but plenty of ice capades in the circus and all that other stuff. So we're going to go into our last break really quickly, and then we're going to hit that last 15-minute stretch. You are listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back.
Man, this
Attention
is
Shaker
a lot
Heights
of fun.
residents.
Man,
The United
golly,
States
this is so
Postal
much
Service
fun.
is bringing a mobile unit every Monday and Thursday
I
from
need to
9
get your
a.m. to
information,
11
man,
a.m.
before-
at
when we get off.
2855 East 130th Street in Cleveland.
All right, cool.
This
Rachel know how to reach me.
Services,
Yeah.
including stamps, package
I
mailing,
got a show dedicated to
for
just
the Shaker
baseball.
Finance Station,
Okay,
which
I'm
closed
in.
through October while enhancing security.
As a matter of fact,
P.O.
it's
Box
gonna air in about
customers
12
should
minutes.
continue to pick up their mail at the Shaker
When
Main
does it air?
at
What'd you say?
3675 Barnesville
It's gonna
Center
air
Road,
in 12
Mondays
minutes.
through Fridays from
And 6
8:30
o'clock
a.m.
outside,
until
right,
5:30 p.m.
But,
and Saturdays
your
from
Twitter,
9
your Twitter,
a.m.
right?
until 2 p.m.
Yeah,
The
the
lobby will
sports
remain
crew.
open for
Okay.
24 hours a day. Once again,
Facebook,
the United
Instagram,
States
Twitter, and
Postal Service
TikTok.
will use a
One-stop
mobile
shop.
unit for Shaker
All
Heights
of them.
residents every Monday and Thursday
What's the
from
name
9
again?
a.m. to 11 a.m. at
The Sports
2855
Crew.
East 130th Street in
Common
Cleveland.
spelling.
This is brought to you by the United States Postal Service and WOVU 95.9 FM. Our Voices United, a Burton Bell Carr community radio station.
So, Willie, where are you based out of? You in Cleveland, too?
I'm in
Experience
Dallas.
technical
You in Dallas? Oh, okay.
terrestrial radio signal. If you are experiencing interference while tuned in to 95.9 FM, simply listen in through the WOVU mobile app or stream us live from our website, WOVU.org.
I got basketball playoffs this evening to watch.
95.9 FM, Our Voices
I'm
United.
a Knicks fan, but we got the Wizards going on tonight.
What's up, Cleveland? It's your girl, Jazzy J, and I just want to know, have you downloaded our app yet? Yes, our app for Androids and iPhones. All you got to do is go to your app store and download WOVU 95.9 FM, and you can listen to us anywhere.
Welcome back to Her in the Huddle with Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle, WOVU at 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports. And I am here with my co-host, Willie Epstein, today, and our special guest, Mr. Mark Gray, Assistant Managing Editor of MLBBro.com and National Radio Voice of HBCU Sports. Excuse me, HBCU.
HBCU sports.
Yes, tongue twister.
No, now see, here's the deal. Let me just confess. I didn't graduate from an HBCU. I went to a black college. Okay, there's a difference between black college and HBCU.
Where'd you go to school at?
I went to Morgan State, which is technically now considered an HBCU, but it was a black college when I got there. Just ask Alan Keyes when he came talking to a bunch of liberal, high-strung African American college students in the late 80s who had been oppressed by Reagan, starting to try to recruit people for the Republican Party. We have this bridge called the Welcome Bridge, which goes across from one side of Hillen Road to the other. I thought they were going to throw that man off. It was that scary that day. So that's the difference between Black college and HBCU. HBCUs now are going to be nice to the fellow and try to get him to write a check.
Yeah. So the funny thing was, I didn't know, like when I became a Delta, some of my line sisters they went to HBCUs and they was calling, I guess, white schools PWIs. And
Yeah,
I've never heard of that term before. I'm like, well, what's that? They're like predominantly white institution. I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was like a thing.
It is a thing. And there are a lot of people who say, and it's almost like you listen to people who didn't go to HBCUs and they say that with such disdain. Yeah, and I'm like, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute now. I don't like that term either. I just like, you went to wherever you went to. We just went to black schools because, historically that's all we had at a certain time. You took advantage of the end of segregation. We just kept it moving, and now look at it. It's a culture change. You got people wearing gear. You got folks in the White House. It's just amazing to watch how things have changed in the last 30 years in terms of perception of our schools.
Yo, as a person that went to three colleges, LSU, Grambling, and the University of Louisiana at Monroe, I graduated from ULM. I went to Grambling for one semester and got my GPA boosted up. I went to LSU for one semester and it was too fast for me. I had to get out of there.
I lived in Baton Rouge, so I know how that deal goes down, man. I really do.
Yeah, well, I had 5 schools. I had 5 PWIs now. That's what they're called, and 5 HBCUs on my list. But I'm gonna say my parents told me I wasn't mature enough to go away that far away, so I had to drop those HBCUs off of my college list. So, it is what it is. I think
there's always grad school.
Yeah, I'm like, I think I'm mature enough. It is what it is. I went to the Ohio State University, and that was my number one anyway since I was 12 years old. But fellas, let's get into this NBA action a little bit. We got about 8 minutes left. So the Lakers were able to even the series up with Willie is a Lakers fan. They was able to even the series up against the Phoenix Suns. So now where are we at with this series? What do you guys think at this point? Because we have to remember the Lakers was the number one team in the West going into LeBron's injury. So I'm expecting them to get back to where they were at and be that dominant team and go ahead and challenge again or repeat as champions if they have a chance to play against Brooklyn. But I'm just like, they were the best team just a couple weeks ago. So I expect them to come out of this series. What are your thoughts about them evening up the series? I wasn't able to finish the game. I fell asleep because 2 p.m.
It is pretty late. Yes.
Yeah.
I'll just say that after watching last night's game, I'm just nuts about the Lakers. I really am. To be able to get away with a jump shot and a clearly egregious dirty play like Anthony Davis. I'm sorry, that is just wrong on every level. When you're talking about a sports culture right now that will penalize college football players and throw them out of the game for incidental head-to-head contact, and you've got Anthony Davis kicking his leg out in the same fashion that we saw Draymond Green get popped for 2 games in the NBA Finals, which cost the Golden State Warriors a championship. It is reprehensible that Anthony Davis was able to not only finish that game, but hasn't been parked for a couple of days. It is ridiculous. It just speaks to the power that LeBron James has right now. And I'm so disgusted with the league as far as the Lakers are concerned right now. That being said, they still the team to beat out West, but nobody, absolutely no one is going to beat the Brooklyn Nets. And I say this grudgingly as a New York Knicks apologist. Nobody's beating the Nets, barring a significant injury. That includes the Lakers or whoever comes out West.
But wait, don't forget about LeBron breaking COVID protocols and nothing happening either.
Well, for so did Kristaps Porzingis, and what
Well,
did he
he
get
got
fined?
fined though, didn't he?
I know that's crazy, right? Like $50K, and nothing happens to LeBron. Wow, must be the wings. We're gonna call that the lemon pepper clause from now on.
Well, what did Kanye say? One man shouldn't have all that power, but
He does, man.
And they hate him for it.
They call it. He is King James, and he's done a whole lot of stuff away from the floor for a lot of people. And I'm anxious to hear his take on the Olympics, because I don't think black athletes from around the world should be going to the Olympics. After the Tokyo Olympic Committee said you can't have Black Lives Matter on your person. And you've got a newspaper in Tokyo that it broke today is urging the cancellation of the games right now. It's the largest circulated newspaper in Japan with over 5 million subscribers. So don't be shocked if we don't have another year without the Olympics. And boy, wouldn't that be a devastating turn to the world economy if Tokyo goes bankrupt after most Olympic cities do anyhow.
Yeah, but the thing too is that they may not have a choice because the cases over there are on the rise anyway. Can I speak on the Lakers real quick? Rachel?
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, before you get to that, because I know you're gonna go off. I'm sorry, I'm not mad about Draymond being kicked out for those 2 games.
I'm sure you're not. It worked out swimmingly for you all there. Yes.
Yeah.
Doggone right. Go ahead, Willie. Sorry.
I was one that liked that too, because even though I grew up the first part of my life in the town, I am not a Warriors fan. But back to you, sir, and your Laker rant. I agree with you 100%.
What?
In terms of that play. However, it does not count if they don't call it.
You're right.
And let me ask you this. Is this something? This is a rhetorical question. Is it really something that actually would have really changed the outcome of the game? It reminds me of the Rams and the Saints in the NFC Championship game when that dude mugged that dude up, that receiver on the sideline, but Breeze and the Saints still had an opportunity to win that game. So if that didn't happen, I don't want to discuss it. So in terms of what's going to happen the rest in this series, I said it yesterday right here on Her in the Huddle, that the Lakers, even though the Lakers dropped game 1, it's going to be a 4-0 sweep, because I'm that much of an emphatic Laker fanatic. All things being real though, they woke a sleeping giant, and I think that actually took place with the Golden State game in the play-in game. But that game did have a lot of concerns for me to surface. But for one miracle shot by King James, man, we would be talking about something totally different.
Well, I mean, that's what he does, man. He does extraordinary, superhuman things, and that's what makes LeBron arguably the best player in the history of the game. And I grew up covering an NBA with Michael Jordan, and I've come along right now to say that you got to put him in the argument for GOAT. But to Anthony Davis, yes, it would have been a directional swing in that game. I don't know if the Lakers down the stretch can hold on to win game 2 if Anthony Davis had been ejected. And I thought that, even if it was a mistake, because they have tossed players for making mistakes, I thought that was one of them that should have been a flagrant too, my friend. That was low, that was dangerous, it was reckless, and it was not called. And I think you got the benefit of the doubt because of the Lakers. But if you're a championship caliber team, Phoenix, you got to man up. The difficult part for Phoenix is going to be without a healthy Chris Paul, and that's a dynamic that I just don't think they can overcome.
All right, fellas, that's it for us. Mark, how can everybody get at you?
Hit me up at The Sports Groove. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, 24/7, 365. Computer, smartphone, tablet, however you get your social media groove on, that's where I'm at.
And Willie, for you?
At Shakeback Show on Twitter, Instagram, Shakeback Sports 1, BGC Sports Network, hashtag Brothers of Baseball. It is on right now on the TuneIn app, Radio Garden, BGCsports.net. Go and listen to it right now. It's on.
And don't forget, you can check me on that same TuneIn app, 3 to 4 p.m. Monday through Fridays on HSRN as well.
And I'm at 1ST Lady of Sports on Instagram and Twitter. And thank you, fellas. It's been a great show, a fun show. Mark, you have an open invite to come back anytime you want to. And
well, you just got, I'm not going to ever invite myself over. You have to call first.
Okay. All right. That's fair enough. All right. You've been listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM, and we are out of here.
What's up, Ronnie Duncan?